repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. This is UCY.tv with the Solvinur Event. It's the 24th of October 2015. How you doing, everybody? If you go to UCY.tv, you will see a link there that says chat, and you can meet other people there, talk to them, and also ask questions. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. Cap is there, Crack, hey buddy, Lone Frog, Otto, Tomato, and Vince. Welcome, everybody. And also one Anon. It's there. So, there, my Siggy. What's up, everybody? You feeling the cold already? Here in Holland, we had a cold week last week before this. It's a bit better now, but winter is coming. Yeah. So, if you want to be part of this event, you have to have Skype. Add me, Solvinur, Solvinur, if I'm not on your list yet. Else just text me and we'll get you on air. Right, this is these are your 2 hours, people. Nobody ever calls in, almost. Well, sometimes when the lines are forwarded, but not via Skype. Doesn't happen very much. So, grab your chance. This is your chance to make radio. This reminds me of Mike Chambers, who actually was very influential in getting me to make radio also. Yeah. He did like 4 hours radio a day. I was like, wow, that's a lot. How do you even manage to do that, right? Talk for 4 hours a day. I have a couple of things open. One is from Principles of General Grammar. It's about nouns and stuff. Excuse me. Or CIA, I have here. Book of Tricks. I'm not quite sure what it's about or who wrote it. So, at least there's no copyright on it, on this PDF. So, I tried to find some stuff that would be interesting, but it's always copyrighted. You know, so I don't want to read that on air. This is CIA Book of Dirty Tricks. So those two things are open. That's it. Good morning, Jules. What's up? I hear there's a big storm coming. Let's see if I can find that for you guys. This one. Open that and then very carefully press pause. Otherwise my computer will start to hang. Okay, there we go. I paused it. Copy that. Put that in the chat. I hope none of you are going to be affected by the aftermath of this hurricane. They said in that video that it went from 1 to 5 in like 28 hours. My question was, is that normal? You know, I'm no meteorologist, so I don't know. But I think that, you know, it just seems like a little bit fast. From 1 to 5 in 28 hours. Is that normal? Just type that in the chat. Otto says, no, that's not normal. Alright, so what's normal then? Takes days, like 3 days or so, or 4 days? I don't know. And Otto says it's raining also. Yeah, so they mentioned that in this video that I just pasted from CBS. And lately I've also been listening to Peace Revolutions, older ones. And there was talk about harp. Most of you will know that. And it's a tricky subject. And when you get conflicting reports about the strength of these antenna arrays and what they can do. And it's also, didn't they like shut down one of them in Alaska? I'm not sure if it was there or somewhere else, but there were reports about there being 52 of those kinds of installations around the world. But if you shut down one, you know, that my suspicious mind then always thinks, well, then they must have found something better by now, right? Because technology advancements do not stop. I'm sorry, Jules. You know what? Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about, because there's like a 50-second lag or something. Yeah. Let me see. No, what? Oh, we've been watching it since 2 days ago, when it appeared out of nowhere to the strongest ever. Okay. Ah, okay. So that's not normal. Not normal. Yeah. And so it's gonna strike Mexico. So what's this? An attack on Mexico? Is that possible? And if so, who's the culprit? Oh my God. Yeah. Weather warfares, it's called, right? So it's another controversial subject. I tend to use the same kind of argument I use against this man-made global warming. You know, it's like, it's very arrogant to think that tiny humans can have an effect on Earth like that. And so these are nature's forces, and I'm not quite convinced yet that they know what to do with it and be able to steer it. This might be due to doing not enough research into the subject. Don't know everything about everything. The only thing that I do stand by 100% is these what Rosalind Peterson calls persistent contrails, right? Another term for them is chemtrails. But that's mainly because of my own memory. I know that this wasn't normal, like before 98, somewhere around there. So I started talking to it about other people as well, and they noticed it also, but, you know, being asleep as I was at the time, yeah, I shrugged my shoulders, and it was like, well, okay, the stripes in the air have changed, and, you know, that's about it. Yeah. So, yeah, there's something going on, but I'm not sure that they get always the results that they want. Some things are locally maybe easier, I guess, because this is like a huge earthly event, right? I don't know if you've clicked that link that I gave in the chat room, but you can see them from some kind of satellite or something, and it's fracking huge. So that's a major influence. Plus, of course, that, you know, they don't show the history of low pressure and high pressure fields, areas that were in the 3 days before it went from 1 to 5 in 28 hours. Because, you know, that might explain why it went from 1 to 5 in 28 hours, but they don't show that because, you know, it probably doesn't explain. Probably doesn't if this is like abnormal. You know, the suspicions rise that this could be weather warfare. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not that it's, you know, that they affected this much effect, but I just don't know how, right? I'm not versed enough, don't have the grammar to be able to draw the inevitable conclusions. And so, and I try not to say something on air unless I'm 100% positively sure about it. So there's a lot of interesting things you can find at tragedyandhope.com. Among them is the Peace Revolution thing, and you can get there by going to Tragedy and Hope. Let's see if it's also on tragedyandhope.com. Hold on, guys, because I'm looking at another site now from Tragedy and Hope. Let's see where we get if we remove a couple of things. What happens? You get to tragedyandhope.com. Let's see if there's also Peace Revolution. Yeah, under so tragedyandhope.com. Then under TNH Audio, that's Tragedy and Hope Audio, you can see Peace Revolution and also an RSS feed. So I'll put that in the chat as well. Copy. This is one of the most informative sites I can find out there. What about that CIA piece? Well, Vince, this is PDF conversion by Grok. That's all that it says. I don't know who it's from or whatever. Then it goes index. It has a lot of things. And then it starts with additives, one of the points from the index. And it starts like, harmful additives are a formidable weapon against machinery, people, and processes. Additives perform one or more of the following. 1, 2, 3, 4. Corrosion, sulfuric acid, for example, will corrode the gutter, eaves, and downspout of a home. Dumped salt will mar a building surface or floor and kill a lawn. So, I don't know what this is, and this is the first sentence I've read of it. The name of this is CIA Book of Dirty Tricks. That's all I got for you, Vince. So if you want to hear that instead of the grammar, that's just fine with me. So, okay, let's see, what was just a big storm? Oh, the chat has disconnected me. Ah! I hate when that happens. There we go, I'm back. About a mobile home 2 days ago. Okay, I'm sorry, it's probably useless to say that. So, hey, let's see, you guys got coffee or something? Good to drink? Hey Dan, welcome buddy. How you doing? Alright, so I hope to have Richard Grove on himself from Tragedy and Hope somewhere in the future. Not sure when yet. And so if you have any questions you want to ask, just email me or put them in the chat now, because I'm not sure whether we're going to record it or whether he's going to be here live. So you can email questions for Richard at Solvinur, SOLVINUR, the number 2, at yahoo.com. Alright. So, let's see. This is a bit lower. So I can keep an eye on the chat. And then copy this. And open that in a new browser. Yay! It works. Go. And we were at page 24. Let's see. At nouns. Now, so how do nouns relate to general grammar as we like to talk about it? It's that those are the most basic building blocks that I can think of. Right, so there are more kinds of building blocks. But nouns are things, right? Think of the analogy that was given with the car and taking it apart and giving names to all the parts, nouns. Nouns may be divided into several classes. Some designate beings by the idea of their individual nature. So, talking about nouns, which ties to names, and obviously people have names. That is to say, in such a manner that this designation is applicable only to a single thing, to a single individual. Thus, Paris, Rome, Alexander, Vespasian are names, each of which belong to one being only, and designates that being in a manner which is applicable to that only. These nouns are called proper nouns. Other nouns designate beings by the idea of a common nature to all the individuals of a species. Such are the words man, horse, cat, which do not of themselves call to mind the idea of an individual in particular, but are applicable to all the individuals of the same species, to every man, every horse, every cat, because they call to mind only the nature which is common to all. Every man is a man, but every man is not Alexander. This is the name of a single individual of the human species. Every horse is a horse, but every horse is not Bucephalus, probably some kind of racehorse. This is the name of a single individual of the horse kind. Same goes for cat. These nouns applicable to all the individuals of a species are called appellative nouns. Lastly, there are nouns which denote neither individuals nor entire classes of being, but qualities, modes of beings, or action, considered independently of the being in which they are found, or which are their object, such as the words friendship, precipitation, fear, joy, perfection, virtue, etc. These are termed abstract nouns, because they denote only a mode of being, separated from the beings themselves and from their other qualities. Alright, so this reminds me of a discussion in philosophical class where they were talking about let's see, how did it go? Qualities and the definition of a class or a definition of a species, right? So they were talking about that if you take away the qualities of, say for instance, a cat or a man or a horse, then you're virtually left with nothing. And then your definition of a man or cat or dog, whatever, would fall into pieces. In other words, the quality of a being and the being itself are inseparable, because the qualities define the being. Right, so that's just what came to my mind here. These are termed abstract nouns because they denote a mode of being separated from the being themselves and from their other qualities. Abstract nouns are often confounded in one class with appellative nouns. As, and then brackets open, as, okay, so Bucephalus was the horse of Alexander the Great. Ah, okay. And one of the most famous actual horses of antiquity. Okay. Thank you, Dan. So brackets open, as appellative nouns express only the nature common to all the individuals of the same species. When we employ these nouns, we abstract everything which characterizes any individual in particular, and consider in each one of the individuals comprised in the extension of the appellative noun only what is common to all without exception. The word being, for example, designates all the substances to which it is applied, only by the simple idea of existence. Simple idea of existence, alright. The word animal adds to the idea of existence, those of a compound, corporeal, complete organized substance, endowed with sensibility and with locomotions, i.e. the power of transporting itself from place to place. The word quadruped adds further to these ideas, that of moving upon 4 feet. Lastly, the word horse increases the sum of these ideas by all the particular ideas of the peculiar form which distinguishes the horse from other species of quadrupeds. Right? Gino Denning and I had kind of a similar talk regarding this topic. You can find it on YouTube. Thus the word horse comprehends a greater number of particular ideas than the word quadruped. This latter comprehends less than the word horse, but more than the word animal. And finally, this last, inferior to the word quadruped, as to the number of ideas it contains, is superior, or in this respect, to the word being. The number of particular ideas comprehended in an appellative noun forms the comprehension of that noun. This is the greater, the more, this is the greater, the more of them the noun comprehends. Of appellative nouns, some are applicable to a single class of beings only, others to a more or less number of different classes. The word horse, for instance, includes all individuals of the horse kind, without distinction of country, age, sex, or color. But the word quadruped, which designates four-footed animals, comprises, beside horses, a multitude of other species. It has therefore a much greater extension than the word horse. It is the same with the word animal in relation to the word quadruped. The first of these words, besides four-footed beasts, include man and all the animals which the earth, air, and water contain. It therefore greatly surpasses the word quadruped in extension. But animals are themselves but a small part of beings, and consequently the appellative noun being, which comprises all extensions, spiritual and corporeal, has a still greater extension than the noun animal. The number of individuals or classes of beings comprised in the signification of an appellative noun forms the extension of that noun. This is the greater, the more of them the noun comprises. Excuse me. Let's see, coffee. From the definitions we have just given of the comprehension and extension of an appellative noun, it follows that the greater comprehension an appellative noun possesses, the less its extension. The word being comprehends but a single idea, that of existence, and extends to everything which exists. The word animal comprehends several particular ideas, but it extends only to corporeal, complete beings, endowed with animal life and with locomotion. It excludes all others. Huh. Interesting. This kind of shakes up my idea of the word being. I thought, but this is just me thinking, right? I thought that the word being was more tied to consciousness. It says here the word being comprehends but a single idea, that of existent, and extends to everything which exists. Right, so like the rock be or something, the rock is heavy. So there's the word being for even something that does not have consciousness, for as far as we know. This may also be due to the fact that in Dutch the word consciousness has the word being in it. It's a root word. Maybe that's also why I tie that, in philosophically speaking, if something is, from to be, the word being, if something is, then it also has to have consciousness. No, that doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. That's strange. So I'll have to adjust that with more of a also being able to be dead. Right? Like a rock that's not alive and still considered a being. Huh, interesting. Alright, so the word being comprehends but a single idea, that of existence, and extends to everything which exists. The word animal comprehends several particular ideas, but it extends only to corporeal, complete beings endowed with animal life and with locomotion. It excludes all others. The word quadruped comprehends one idea more than the word animal. Hence, it extends to a part only of the tribes of animals, to those who have received from nature 4 feet upon which to move. It excludes man, birds, fishes, etc. Finally, the word horse includes a great number of particular ideas which are not comprised in the word quadruped, but it extends only to a single class of 4-footed animals and excludes all the rest. What we have said of appellative nouns applies also to abstract nouns. The word indolence, for example, comprehends a greater number of particular ideas than the word vice, and hence has less extension than the last word, which extends to indolence, pride, gluttony, anger, etc. Moving on to peculiar nouns. There are in most appellative, no, there are in most languages appellative nouns, whose comprehension is very limited, and whose extension is almost boundless, because they designate beings by the simple idea of existence, common to them all, and augmented only by some accidental or external relation, whether to the person who speaks, to those who listen, or to others. Such in English are the words this, that, these, and those, which are equivalent to this person, this being, this thing, that person, that being. These are genuine appellative nouns, which join to the general idea expressed by the word person. Being, thing, that of demonstration, that is to say, the particular circumstance of being under the eyes of those who speak or listen. And it is precisely because these objects are corporally present, present arms, or because he who speaks has already designated them in such a manner as to render them present to the minds of his auditors, that we are content to recall them by nouns so vague and of such unlimited extension. Right. The words each, whoever, whatever, somebody, etc. belong also to the class of appellative nouns, and the extension of their signification should not exclude them from it. Chapter 5 on the article. Alright. Blah blah blah. Next chapter. Proper nouns designate beings in a definite matter, so that there is no need of any sign to put out the particular individuals to which they are applied. Appellative nouns, on the contrary, being common to all the individuals of the same species, when we wish to apply them to a single individual or to a certain number of individuals of the species, or lastly to the entire species, it is of use to employ particular signs to indicate these various applications. It is the same with abstract nouns. They designate a quality or an action in general manner, and independently of the shades of difference of which it is susceptible, and which in some sort denote different things. Thus the word indolence includes alike indolence of body and indolence of mind, the dullness which we feel on rising from bed, and the indolence which prevents the performance of our duties. The word virtue includes alike prudence, temperance, docility, etc. Hence, when we employ abstract nouns to express qualities or actions considered in a particular manner in relation to a subject in which they are found, or to something which is their object, this employment of them must be denoted by particular signs. The words which serve to determine the extension of appellative and abstract nouns are denominated articles. Such in English are the words the, this, that, these, those. The words a and un are usually regarded as articles. I think it is without reason that they are thus regarded. Let us make this apparent by examples. The word man denotes the union of all of the qualities necessary to make a man, and common to all individuals of human species. It is found with the sense in the following sentence. To merit the name of man, we must act like man and not like animals destitute of reason. In this case, I neither mean to designate the entire species or all the individual collectively which compose of it, nor to point out a particular individual. If I wish to speak of a certain man in particular, I make use of the article the, as in saying, the man who built this house was rich. We may denominate this article the determinative article. Next is a demonstrative article. If the man of whom I was speaking were present, or if I had previously pointed him out in such a manner that he was, as it were, under the eyes of those whom I addressed, I should employ the article this or that. I should say, for example, this man whom you see is a rogue. This article may be called the demonstrative article. The determinative article frequently serves to denote that the appellative noun is used with the whole of its extension, and this happens especially when we wish to characterize a whole species in opposition to another. When I say, the woman has sensibility for her share, but strength is the attribute of a man, it is plain that I oppose the entire class of the masculine to that of the feminine sex, and the article adds energy and precision to the expression. The demonstrative article, on the contrary, always confines the extension of the appellative noun by limiting its signification to a part of the individuals to whom it is applicable by itself. When I say these men, these horses, I never speak of the whole class of men or of horses. I speak only of a determinate part of this species. Some languages, as the Biscayan and Danish, employ for determinative articles instead of separate words terminations suffixed to the nouns. There are moreover some languages, as Latin and Persian, which make no use of determinative articles. The determinative articles is frequently employed in English and in most modern languages in an improper manner and contrary to its primitive intention. Although in many of these cases we can by means of subtitles justify its use, there is a large number in which we can offer no other excuse for it than the caprice of custom. It is thus that in Greek the determinative article is placed before proper nouns, and that in that language, together with the Arabic, that determinative and demonstrative articles are often united. It is thus also that in these languages the article is used before both the noun and the adjective. So that they say the door, the grate, instead of saying, as in English, the great door. Besides, in most languages, in most modern languages, although not in English, the determinative articles is of great use in distinguishing gender and number. Perhaps it is this, more than anything else, which has contributed to render its use so extensive. The number of demonstrative articles may be large or small. Some languages, for instance, have different demonstrative articles for things which are near and things which are distant, while others do not. This distinction of signification is expressed in French by the addition of the adverbs here or there, according as the object is near or remote. The demonstrative article may be different, moreover, according as the noun to which it is attached denotes a rational animal or a brute, an animated or an inanimate being. There might even be different articles, both determinative and demonstrative, according to the rank or quality of the person to whose names these articles were attached, and according to their relations of superiority or inferiority to the person who speaks. Alright, that was chapter 5. Of the pronoun, chapter 6. Every judgment of our minds has something for its object. Hence, every proposition, it being only the picture of a judgment of our minds, must have for its subject a noun, which recalls the idea of a thing. It often happens that we do not name the thing, the idea of which we wish to recall, but content ourselves with designating it in another way. Thus, when I myself am the subject of the proposition, I do not name myself, but in place of my name I use the word I. I do not say when speaking of myself, Anthony wishes to sleep. I say, I wish to sleep. When a female to whom I am speaking is herself the subject of the proposition, I do not name her, but in place of her name I employ the word thou. That's an old word. Is that still in use? I'm guessing it's you. Thus, in speaking to Antoinette, I do not say Antoinette plays, but you plays. When the person or thing which is the subject of the proposition is sufficiently understood by those whom I address, whether it be because I have already named it or because it is present and I point it out with my finger instead of employing its name, I make use of the word he, she, or it. Thus, after having said, Charlotte writes badly, I should not add, but Charlotte sews well. Charlotte speaks but little, Charlotte is still. I should say, but she sews well, she speaks but little, she is still. In the same way, when Victor holds his book without learning anything, when speaking of him to his mother, I do not say, Victor holds his book, but Victor learns nothing. I say, he holds his book, but he learns nothing. The words I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they are called pronouns, because, no, not because, which name denotes that they stand in the place of nouns. The person who speaks is called the first person, he who is addressed the second person, and he of whom we speak the third person. I and we are pronouns of the first. You, single you, and you, multiple you, of the second person. He, she, it, and they are of the third person. When the person who acts is at the same time the person upon whom the action falls, The pronoun which serves to denote the object of the action is called reflexive. Such in English are the pronouns myself, thyself, himself, herself, itself, and their plurals, as in these phrases. She saw herself in a mirror. She killed herself with a sword, etc. Pronouns, therefore, as appears from what we have just said, are words designed to denote the part which each person or thing plays in the act of speech. This is the literal meaning of the word person, borrowed from the Latin persona, which may be translated actor. Interesting. Some languages have no reflexive pronouns and supply their place in another way. The Arab, for instance, says, I have wounded my soul. The last, no, not the last. Thou hast wounded thy soul, for I have wounded myself. You have wounded yourself. The custom has been introduced into many languages of employing the plural pronoun of the second person instead of the singular. Thus in English we say, what do you want? And not, what dost thou want? Right? So nowadays, you also means plural, right? As well as single. If you just say, what do you want? This could be a person speaking to a group of people or some specific one. As far as I know, anyway. I mean, thou is not used anymore, right? In some languages, different pronouns are used. By the way, if you translate that to Dutch, you get u, which is a polite way of saying you. And also it's etymologically so tight that it must mean the same thing, of course. Alright. So thou translated to Dutch would be you, a simple, it's one letter word, you. It's when what little kids get told by their parents, use the word you when you speak to elders, right? But I think we hardly use it anymore. I've heard it, the word you in Dutch been used like once in like months by somebody. Alright, enough about thou and you. In some languages, different pronouns are used according to the different degrees of superiority or inferiority of him who speaks in relation to him who is addressed. An example of this is seen in the Biscayan language, which possesses 3 singular pronouns of the second person. The shade of difference in the signification of pronouns may extend to the 3 different persons, and thus, in fact, in the language of Japanese. The words which are employed in that language to express I, thou, he, express at the same time with extreme precision the different relations of superiority or inferiority subsisting between the interlocutors. Yeah. So this basically describes the chain of authority, which is manufactured into our language. And different relations of superiority or inferiority. Chapter 7. Adjective. We often consider beings with relation to their quality, whether essential to their nature or accidental. We are then obliged to add to the proper or appellative noun, which is the name of the thing of which we speak, the name of this quality, and to make known the connection which we suppose to exist between the being and the quality. Thus, in these examples, the man who has reason, the king who has courage, the sun which has brightness, the words reason, courage, and brightness express the qualities which I observe in the beings of which I speak, which are the man, the king, and the sun. But this manner of expression is long and monotonous. We can attain the same end in a shorter way by saying the reasonable man, the courageous king, and the bright sun. The words reasonable, courageous, bright are called adjectives. Adjectives. And there's a little asterisk there. Do I scroll down to the asterisk? And it says, the use of the adjective is only a compendious method of expression, and it is not absolutely necessary. It is for this reason that one language has not adjectives corresponding to all of another. Thus in Arabic, there are no adjectives answering to our adjectives, every, each, no, some, what, etc. So that in place of saying every man, no man, each man, some man, what man is that, etc., they say the totality of men, not one among men. The totality of one among men, a portion of men. What of man is that? Jesus, this sounds horrible. The Latin adjectives, tot, quod, etc., cannot be translated into our language except by the two words so many, how many, etc. Alright, so far the asterisks. The word adjective signifies which is designed to add, and in fact adjectives are designed to add to the noun, which recalls the idea of the nature of beings, a quality which may belong as properly to beings of a different nature, insomuch that they cannot designate any particular being, any particular beings, unless they are joined to a noun. Right, so this is basically repeating what I said about that philosophical class. Qualities have to be from a thing, a noun. They have to be tied. When I say white, courageous, shining, rational, I do not call up in the mind the idea of any being. But if I join these adjectives to nouns and say white wine, courageous man, shining sun, rational animal, there results from the union of the noun and adjective the idea of a being which is denoted by its nature and considered as possessing a certain quality. Right? The word nature also reminds me of something. Starts something like existence exists, A is A, right? A thing is what it is, and it has a specific nature. And like qualities, if you strip it of its nature, then there's nothing left. It takes away such a huge chunk that it the definition becomes useless. If I should say black are more common in France than white, you could not understand what I meant to express. You would not be able to determine whether what I meant to express was true or false, and you might reasonably inquire of what I was speaking. The reason is that not having employed any noun, I could not have called the mind, I could not have called to mind the idea of any being, and that, as the qualities white and black may be applied to a multitude of entirely different beings, they could not point out any one in particular. But if I say black horses are more common in France than white horses, you would understand me perfectly, and you could judge that what I said was true. Alright, guys. 5 o'clock. Do we want to go and look for some poker face? Let's see. If we can find something. Blah blah blah. Let's see. This one sounds. It says it's an interview, but I'm not sure if it really is. It doesn't really matter. It's from Paul Petty from Poker Face. So we'll open that.
Interesting.
Is it really? Well, we'll see what we get, right? Let me get that here. Maximum sound. A bit up, I think. Blah.
Interesting. When it goes on the screen, Paul, tell us a little bit what it means. It's coming up in a moment. That's folded up and it comes with your CD-ROM. We're going to dwell on it for a minute or two. Tell us what it means to you and to the people that listen to your music.
The map was included in the insert just to give a brief overview of some of the atrocities that the government is committing against we the people, whether it's the practicing of military exercises within our borders, where they're doing search house-to-house, search and seizure of weapons, to where they've blown airplanes out of the skies because of somebody that might have been in it, to just, like I said, Waco, Ruby Ridge, or even President Kennedy's assassination, or Malcolm X, or
Kennedy Jr.
Kennedy Jr. is also on there. But it's something that people can quickly look at and go, wow, when you look at it all collectively in one big picture, there's a lot of things that have been going on. But what happens on the lamestream press is they put out quick sound bites, and as quickly as they put it out, it's quickly forgotten in the Orwellian black hole that, will never be seeing the light again. But hopefully this is an information piece that, children can teach their parents, or parents can teach the children, vice versa.
What's interesting, I've been trying since the beginning of this program to find somebody that plays, what I call protest music. Why do you suppose that many talented musicians steer away from it? They don't know that America's got a dark side that needs to be corrected, or what is it? What is it?
They're so wanting of a career. They're so wanting of being a star that whatever the labels want from them, they'll do. If there's a subject that is politically hot button, they'll go to their people and say, hey, look, we'd like you to, not that you have to, but, it would be better for your career. It will bode well. We'll use the music for movies, or we'll use the music for something that will get your name out there. So if you put out an anti-gun song, we'll back you because, we're trying to help disarm America. We're one of the tools that are being used, and music is a big force for that.
You believe that it's a sinister thing. First of all, there's some people have investigated Columbine, that thing in Colorado, and there were people there that were adults. Hours before those assassins were there, there was government involvement. A vehicle showed up with the letters on the side of it, NATO. What was NATO doing in Colorado? And why did a general show up there in uniform before the police, before the fire department?
It's pretty amazing.
The mass media didn't use it. But in other words, so some of those that could have made you rich and famous, did they take you on the side, you and your colleagues in your band, and says, hey, cool it, stop playing this stuff, play lovey-dovey music?
No, nobody's approached us.
But they gave you a hint that that's not the thing to do, some way, but an expression on their face, they gave you a hint that you're not going to go to the top and get well off with that kind of stuff.
Well, what is to the top? I guess I have to live with myself, and I think that's the bottom line. I like to be able to look at the mirror and say, you're a decent human being, Paul, and I think that's the bottom line.
Alright, welcome back everybody. This is UCY.tv, and we're gonna continue where we left off. Welcome Jane. Some people have joined in the chat. Dan Hopper wasn't there. Welcome. Let's see, where were we? Adjectives are more frequently employed with appellative and abstract nouns than with proper nouns, because as proper nouns designate individuals in a manner which can apply only to them, it is not necessary to express their qualities in order to cause them to be recognized by those whom we address. Appellative nouns, on the contrary, being applicable to all the individuals of the same species, when we wish to confine their signification to a part only of the individuals of the species, we may make use of adjectives for purpose. Thus, when I say horses are very useful animals, the appellative noun horses comprises all of the individuals of that species. But if I wish to speak of horses of a certain color, of a certain age, or of a certain country only, I might restrict the signification of the appellative noun by connecting with it an adjective, as in the following proposition: white horses are rare, old horses are not capable of fatiguing labor, French horses are robust and agile. It is the same with abstract nouns. Nouns which designate a quality or an action considered in a general way. This idea is susceptible of being restricted or modified, and it is often done by means of an adjective. Thus the word love which denotes in general the inclination of the heart towards some object, may be modified by adjectives in 1,000 ways, and we may say divine love, profane love, lively, ardent, celestial, timid, reserved love, etc., etc. Proper nouns are more rarely connected with adjectives, for the reason I have stated above. This happens, nevertheless, somewhat frequently. For example, we join an adjective to a proper noun when the same name is common to several individuals, and we wish to distinguish them from each other, and then this adjective becomes, as it were, a part of the proper noun. Thus we say, Charles the Bald, Charles the Great, Louis the Just, and Louis the Debonair. Something like that, Debonair. To distinguish these princes from others who have borne the name of Charles or Louis. We also join an adjective to a proper noun to point out a certain quality of the individual designated by the noun, a quality to which alone we direct our attention at the moment. In saying, for instance, the modest Fenelon, I evince that I am considering Fenelon at that moment not as a learned, eloquent, pious, or benevolent man, but simply as a modest man. Adjectives may be employed in discourse with two different functions. Sometimes the adjective forms of itself the attribute of a proposition, as in this expression, Nero was cruel. Sometimes it enters either into the subject or into the attribute, or into something other, accessory part of the proposition, to qualify the noun with which it is connected. It is thus that it appears in these propositions. An obedient son is the joy of his father. Solomon was a just king. Innocence is a strong consolation in the midst of the most terrible adversity. When the adjective forms the attribute of a proposition, it belongs to the noun which serves as the subject of the proposition and cannot be joined to any other noun, since it is of the subject that we affirm the quality expressed by this adjective. Everywhere else, as the adjective performs only the function of a qualificative, it must necessarily be joined to a noun. And if at any time the noun be suppressed, it is only because it can easily be supplied by those whom we address. Thus in this proposition, black horses are more common in France than white. There are three adjectives, whatever. Black, common, and white. The first qualifies the noun horses, which expresses the subject. The second, common, forming the attribute, cannot be united to a noun. As to the last, the word white, it must be connected with a noun. This noun is understood, but there is no one who could not readily supply it. It is the noun horses which ought to be repeated after this adjective, and the sentence is only an abridgment of the following. Black horses are more common in France than white horses are common in France. Strange. In this sentence, the righteous will be eternally happy and the wicked eternally miserable. Are found 4 adjectives without a single noun. These adjectives are the words righteous, wicked, happy, and miserable, as the last two form the attributes of the two propositions of which the sentence is composed. It is not necessary that they should be connected with nouns. The 2 other adjectives can, it is true, designate determinate beings only by a connection with a noun, and although this is not expressed, it is only because everybody sees that it must be men, and that this sentence is equivalent to the following. Righteous men will be eternally happy, and wicked men will be eternally miserable. Adjectives, with reference to the influence which they exert over the nouns they qualify, may be divided into two classes. Some qualify the noun to which they are attached by a circumstance entirely extraneous of the subject expressed by that noun. Such are the adjectives all, every, each, none, some, one, two, three, etc. I shall denominate these circumstantial adjectives. Others define the noun to which they are united by a quality which exists in the subject expressed by that noun. Such are the adjectives good, beautiful, red, royal, my, thine, our, first, second, third, thy, not thine, our, first, second, third, and so on. I call the adjectives of this second class qualificative adjectives. These two kinds of adjectives have nearly the same relation to each other as exists between the determinative and demonstrative articles. Circumstantial adjectives, like the determinative article, affect only the extension of the appellative nouns, without influencing in any degree their comprehension. Hold on. Qualitative adjectives, like the demonstrative article, affect at the same time their extension and comprehension, diminishing the former and increasing the latter. Let us make this apparent by several examples. Excuse me. When I say this cloth is fine, the blue cloth is dear, my cloth is excellent, the first cloth is the best, I add to the ideas comprised in the appellative noun cloth that of being present to the sight of whom I address, or of being of blue color, or of being in my possession, or lastly of holding the first rank among several cloths. And by this means I greatly diminish the extension of the word cloth, inasmuch as I exclude all cloths which either are out of my sight, or are of any other color than blue, or in the possession of any other individual than myself, or, lastly, which occupy any other rank than the first rank. On the contrary, when I say, all wine is the product of the vine, each wine has its peculiar taste, every wine loses by age a part of its strength, some wines last scarcely 3 years. There are 2 wines which I prefer to all others. I restrict, it is true, the extension of the word wine, or else I indicate that I use it in all its extension, but I neither add any particular idea to those which the word wine comprehends, nor take any away from them. From the fact that the extension and comprehension of proper nouns can neither be enlarged nor diminished, it would seem that they could not from their very nature be connected with either articles or adjectives. Yet they sometimes take both, as I have already stated. When they are common to several individuals, the attention of the article or adjective serves to diminish their extension by increasing their comprehension, and to render them thus individual, as they should be from their nature. This connection takes place in the examples I have adduced. Louis the Bonaire, Louis the Just, Charles the Great, Charles the Bold. When the proper noun can designate but a single individual, as in an example I have presented, the modest Fenelon, or in this, the cruel Caligula, the addition of article and adjective is yet made with the same intention as the preceding case. In fact, the noun Fenelon seems to include the ideas of an eloquent man, a learned man, a sensible man, etc., and the noun Caligula, on the contrary, to comprise the ideas of a debauched, imbecile, besotted man, as if there were so many different persons classed under one name. By adding an adjective to these nouns, I enlarge their comprehension and diminish their extension. I exclude by a process of abstraction purely mental the eloquent Fenelon, the learned Fenelon, the sensible Fenelon, that I may speak only of the modest Fenelon. By the same operation of the mind, I exclude the imbecile Caligula, the debauched Caligula, the besotted Caligula, that I may see only the cruel Caligula, to whom alone I wish those who hear me to direct their attention. Moving on to numeratives, chapter 8. Alright. Yeah, blah blah. So, chapter 8 of numeratives. Appellative nouns are, from their nature, applicable to all the individuals of the same species. We have seen that by means of articles and adjectives, we may confine them to a part or even to one of these individuals. If the number of individuals to which we desire to confine their extension is not precisely determined, we make use of adjectives such as several, some, or of nouns as a portion, a number, etc. If this number be definite, in all languages, words are employed which are intended for the special purpose of numeration, as in English, 1, 2, 4, 100, 1,000. I denominate words designed for this purpose numeratives. These words may be either nouns or adjectives. In English they are true adjectives of that class which I have named circumstantial adjectives. We have, however, nouns which are made use of for enumeration, but in a collective way, that is to say, as if all the individuals numbered composed but a single mass. It is thus we say a couple, a dozen, a score, a million, etc. In some other languages, all the numeratives are nouns. In Arabic, the number 1 is an adjective. All the others are nouns. It follows from what has been said that the numeratives do not form of themselves a distinct class of words, but that they belong to the class of nouns or adjectives, according to the genius of different languages. Chapter 8 of the Proposition. We are often obliged to unite several words in order fully to express the idea of the thing of which we are speaking. If I say, give me a horse, the word horse of itself fully expresses the thing of which I speak. But when I say, give me a horse of pasteboard, I unite the idea of a horse to that of a pasteboard, that I may make the representation of the thing I speak of complete. In some if someone should ask me, what are you doing? I might answer, I am writing. And this single word would give him an idea of the action about which I was employed. But if I wish to give him a more definite knowledge of what I was doing, I might say, I am writing a lesson in grammar. He would know then not merely that I was writing, but that I was writing a lesson, and that this lesson was a lesson in grammar. In the first case, when I use but a single word to paint the idea of a thing or an action, this word is used in an absolute manner. When the principal word which characterizes the thing or action is followed by one or more nouns which are related to it and modify the principal idea, this word is employed in a relative manner. In the example, give me a horse, the noun horse is employed as an absolute manner. In the example, give me a horse of pasteboard, the same word horse is employed in a relative manner, and the noun with which it is in relation is pasteboard. In the example, I am writing, the verb to write is employed in an absolute manner. In the other example, I am writing a lesson in grammar, the same verb to write is employed in a relative manner, and the noun with which it is in relation is lesson. But this latter noun itself is employed in a relative manner, and the noun with which it is in relation is grammar. The relation between two words is not always the same. Thus, between the words I am and water, there may be a great number of different relations, as I am in the water, I am on the water, I am under water, I am before the water, I am behind the water, I am near the water. To express these different relations, we must employ in discourse different signs. These relations are denoted sometimes merely by the places which the words occupy in a proposition, sometimes by the different terminations which are given to the same word, sometimes, finally, by certain words placed between the words, between the word which is employed in a relative manner and that which is in relation with it. These words are called prepositions, from a Latin word which signifies to place before. Prepositions. Because that in Latin as in English they are placed before the noun which completes the relation. In some other languages, in the Turkish language, Basque and Greenlandish, for example, these words are placed after the consequent term, and we cannot properly give them the name of prepositions or prepositions. Strange, right? Voorpositionering, vooronderstelling, preposition. I'm thinking of something completely different when I read that word. In these words, a horse of pasteboard, the nouns horse and pasteboard are in relation with each other. And the nature of this relation is determined by the preposition of, not by the preposition of, the nature of this relation is determined by the preposition of. In the other example, I am writing a lesson in grammar, the verb I am writing and the noun a lesson are in relation, and this relation is denoted by the place which the noun occupies immediately after the verb. The noun lesson, moreover, is in relation with the noun grammar, and the nature of this relation is determined by the preposition in. Lastly, in all the examples, I am in the water, I am upon the water, and so on, the verb I am and the noun water are in relation, but the nature of each of these different relations is determined by several propositions: in, on, under, before, and so on. A relation always supposes two things. These two things are called the two terms of the relation. The first is called antecedent, the second the consequent. In these words, a horse of pasteboard, the two terms of the relation are horse and pasteboard. Horse is the antecedent, pasteboard the consequent. The preposition which is employed to point out the nature of the relation which exists between the two forms is called the exponent. Asterisk, and it says, this denomination is borrowed from arithmetic. In that science, the exponent is the number which expresses the relation existing between two other numbers. 3 is the exponent of the relation of 12 to 4. In this sentence, Moses gave the law of God to the Jewish people. There are three relations. The first for its antecedent term gave, and for its consequent term the law. The second has for its antecedent the law, and for its consequent God. The third has for its antecedent gave, and for its consequent the Jewish people. In the first relation there is no exponent. In the second, the exponent is the proposition of. In the third, it's to. The same word, which serves as the consequent term to one relation, may serve at the same time as antecedent to another. Let me roll a ciggy meanwhile. Of this we have seen an example in the proposition, I'm writing a lesson in grammar, where the word lesson serves as at once as consequent to I am writing and antecedent to grammar. In this example, I have bought a table of mahogany. We find two following relations. First relations antecedent, I have bought, consequent, a table. Second relation antecedent, a table, consequent, mahogany. We see that the word table serves at the same time as consequent to the first relation and antecedent to the second. If the example previously given, Moses gave the law of God to the Jewish people, were translated into Latin, we should have Moses dedit legem Deu popule Judaico. Okay, we do not read Latin, right? So let's skip this. Each of these relations has its exponent, but this exponent is not, as in English, a separate word. In the first, it is the final em. This is about that Latin stuff still. Should have been inside of the brackets, I'm thinking, because the bracket ended, but let's see. In a great many languages, both in those which admit cases as the Turkish, Basques, etc., and in those which do not admit them, as in the Persian, The relation between two nouns is denoted by placing the consequent term immediately before the antecedent. There's another asterisk. In this case, the denominations antecedent and consequent would seem to be contradictory to the order of the words, but they preserve their priority. No, not priority. They deserve their property. No, propriety in relation to the order of the ideas. In the example cited from the Basque language, it is the idea of the ornaments which first present itself to the mind and which is modified by the idea of the altars, as this is in its turn is modified by the idea of churches, and the idea of the churches by that of the Indies. That was the asterisk. Let's try this again. In a great many languages, the relation between two nouns is denoted by placing the consequent term immediately before the antecedent, and making, as it were, but a single word. This may even take place in regard to several nouns forming different successive relations. Thus, in the Basque language, instead of saying the ornaments of the altars of the churches of the Indies, they express themselves in a manner nearly equivalent to the following: in these churches, altars, ornaments. The consequent term of a relation may also be called the complement. If the nature of the relation is determined by a preposition, the consequent term of this relation is the complement of the preposition. If there is no preposition, the consequent term is the immediate complement of the antecedent. Chapter 10 on the of the adverb. There is no relation which may not be expressed by a preposition followed by its complement, or by an immediate complement. But it is sometimes the case that instead of employing a preposition and its complement, we make use of a single word which combines at once the signification of both. Thus, instead of saying to live in tranquility, to walk with slowness, to write with rapidity, to speak in a bold manner, to be rich to excess, we may say to live tranquilly, to walk slowly, to write rapidly, to speak boldly, to be excessively rich. These words are called adverbs. Every adverb is equivalent to a preposition followed by its complement. But it is not true that every preposition followed by its complement can in all languages be exchanged for an adverb. For there are in every language adverbs to which there are no equivalent single words in other languages. Thus the Latin adverb dextrorsum, sinistrorsum, can be rendered in English only by these expressions, to the right, to the left, which include prepositions followed by their complements. In Arabic, on the contrary, there is no noun, verb, or adjective which may not become an adverb. Thus, in Greek, by means of a peculiar termination, all names of places might become adverbs, and the Greeks said in a single word, from Athens, to Athens. In these expressions, to come from Athens, to go to Athens. Adverbs serve to express the circumstance which accompany an action, such as circumstances of time, place, instrument, and manner. They are also used to modify the attribute contained in the verb, and also the adjective, which is itself an attribute. Asterisk. So we'll read the asterisk. Gebelin, whoever that is, Gebelin will have it that the adverb modifies only the action of the mode of existence comprehended in the verb, and says that in these phrases, he is extremely handsome, he is truly king, it is the verb and not the attribute which is modified by the adverb. I think this to be incorrect, as the abstract verb merely denotes the existence of the subject with relation to an indefinite attribute. It is not susceptible of any modification except the circumstantial modifications of time and duration, like those which are found in the Arabic verbs signifying to be in the morning, to be with duration, to be in the evening. Gebelin says further that adverbs in their absolute sense are never employed except with verbs. But it is so with all circumstantial expressions. They always modify a verb, and the reason that adverbs are used in an absolute sense with verbs is that these verbs contain an attribute which the adverb modifies, as he points admirably, he paints admirably, i.e. he is painting admirably. Right, so this goes on for some more time, but I'm losing where we left off, so let me scroll back here. Thus we say, he writes tolerably, he has died courageously, he has been severely beaten, he is extremely prudent, he is very rich. Many adverbs are themselves susceptible of modification by other adverbs. Adverbs which may be modified by other adverbs are those which express a quality susceptible of increase or diminution. Adverbs which serve to modify others are those which express quantity, as more, less, very, little, to, with two O's, exceedingly, extremely, as, etc. Thus we say more briefly, very wisely, but we cannot say more or very first. Those adverbs of quantity which serve to modify adverbs of quality may also modify each other. For example, we say very properly, he is infinitely more wise. Certain adverbs, and especially those which denote circumstances of place, may be used as the complements of preposition. Thus we say, go from hence to Rome. He came from thence in a very short time. From whence came you? Which brings the next chapter. Blah, blah. The different kinds of words we have hitherto considered, verbs, nouns, articles, adjectives, pronouns, prepositions, and adverbs, unite to form a proposition and to determine the relations which exist between different terms of the same proposition. Yeah. But as the different terms of the same proposition are in relation with each other, so also have different propositions relations to each other which it is necessary to express in discourse. Sometimes a proposition is opposed to that which precedes it. Sometimes it depends upon it as a necessary condition. Sometimes it serves as a complement. Each of these characters must be denoted by a peculiar sign, which shall indicate the mutual dependence of these propositions and the nature of their relations. Let us explain this by example. God spoke, and everything was made. He commanded, and everything was created. God spoke is one complete proposition. Everything that was made is another, and complete as the former. As complete as the former. The word "and," which joins them, belongs to neither. It serves merely to connect them and to denote that the production of all things was a consequence of the Word of God. The same must be said of the two other propositions. He commanded, everything was created. Each singly has a perfect signification. The word "and," which unites them, denotes that the cause of the effect expressed by the second was the command of God expressed by the first. Another example. Cicero in his youth was covered with glory, but his old age was disturbed by the misfortunes of the Republic. There are here two complete propositions. The word "but" belongs to neither. It indicates the contrariety between the thought expressed by the first proposition and that contained in the second. You will dine here tomorrow if you wish to do me a pleasure. Here also are two propositions. One is, you will dine here tomorrow. The other, you wish to do me a pleasure. The word "if," which connects these two propositions, shows the conditional relation existing between them. God desires that we should love our neighbor. The first proposition is, God desires. The second, we should love our neighbor. Indeed, we can express the same idea under another form by saying, let us love our neighbor, God desires it. And under this form we can easily perceive the distinction between the two propositions. The word "that," which connects them, indicates that the second is the complement of the first. Hold on, guys. It will rain tomorrow, or it will blow very violently, for the barometer is falling. Here are three propositions. The first two are joined by the word "or," indicating doubt and alternative. They are both connected with the third by the word "for," which denotes that the two first are a consequence of the third. That the falling of the mercury in the barometer is the fact which makes me judge that it will either rain tomorrow or it will blow very violently. Although these words "and," "or," "if," "that," "for," "but" have very different significations, they have all nevertheless a common use: to connect the different propositions and to show that they have a relation to each other. There's another asterisk. The conjunctions and neither are also employed to connect the parts of a subject or of a simple complex attribute. Examples: to love God and at the same time to follow the dictates of our passions is an impossibility. To fear neither God nor man, nor the testimony of one's own conscience, is the character of a villain who deserves to be banished from society. It is hence that they are called conjunctions, but conjunctions do not merely in a vague manner denote a relation, they also determine the nature of the relation. We may frequently, by means of a conjunction, unite several propositions into one. Thus we may say, God made us to worship and serve him, which is equivalent to those two propositions. God made us to worship him, and he made us to serve him. Be neither avaricious nor prodigal is equivalent to these. Be not avaricious, and be not prodigal. It is not man who is to be feared, but God is equivalent to it is not man who is to be feared, but it is God who is to be feared. Conjunctions do not only denote that relations exist between different propositions, they moreover determine, as we have said, the nature of these relations. They are therefore the exponents of the relations existing between the two propositions, which are the terms of these relations. The antecedent and the consequent, in the same manner as prepositions are the exponents of relations existing between two nouns or between a noun and a verb. But these relations are, moreover, frequently denoted by a variation in the form of the verb, and that proposition which serves as the consequent term, or even in the form of the verbs of both propositions. The same thing takes place, as we have already hinted, in regard to the relation between a verb and a noun. In some languages, this relation, although determined by the preposition, is still further denoted by the case in which the consequent or complement of the preposition is put. Thus, in Latin, eo ad urbem, I go to the city, venio ab urbi, I come from the city, the nature of the relation subsisting between eo, I go, and urbi, the city, urbi, urban, is determined by both the preposition ad, to, and by the final of the word urban. The nature of the relation subsisting between venio, I come, and urbi, the city, is determined by the preposition ab, from, and by the final e of the word urbi. Alright, so don't speak Latin. That must have not made much sense. The case is the same with two propositions forming the two terms of a relation of which the conjunction is the exponent. Thus, if we say, I desire that you would learn your lesson, there are two propositions in relation. The antecedent is I desire, the consequent, you would learn your lesson. The exponent is that. It determines the nature of the relation, a relation of subordination, but this relation is also denoted by the form of the verb, you would learn. We say likewise, mankind would be happy if they were virtuous. The conjunction if determines the nature of the relation between these two propositions, a relation of supposition. But, besides, the nature of the relation is denoted by the form of the verb would be. These variations in the form of verbs are what are called modes. We shall discuss them hereafter. Chapter 12 of the interjection. All the species of words of which we have hitherto treated unite in completing the representation of our thoughts. Yeah. There is another species of words which do not at all express our thoughts, but are the almost spontaneous expression of our sensations. Thus a man who is in pain cries out, "Ow!" A man in a moment of astonishment expresses his surprise by, "Oh!" A man whose mind is entirely engrossed with a feeling of sorrow and woe expresses it by "Alas!" These and similar words are called interjections. Next chapter, 13, mixed words. The reader may be at a loss to determine to what class he must refer certain words, which seem either not to belong to any of the classes which I have named, or else belong to several at the same time. I begin by making some remarks upon the words my, thy, his, our, etc., which are commonly, though not very correctly, denominated possessive pronouns. If we attend to the definition which has been given of pronouns, we shall clearly see that these are not pronouns, but that they are adjectives, bearing the same relation to pronouns that the adjectives national, heavenly, etc. do, to the nouns nation, heaven. With reference to the pronouns from which they are derived, we may denominate them pronominal adjectives. They are equivalent to the determinative article the, together with the proposition of, having for its complement the corresponding personal pronouns me, thee, him, etc. My book is the same as the book of me, or belonging to me. Our book is the same as the book of us, etc. Many languages have no pronominal adjectives, supplying their place in the above way, by pronouns placed in relation with the nouns and forming the consequent terms of these relations. Thus they say the book of me, the life of us. Here's another bracket open. Let us pass to another species of words, which are also often numbered among the pronouns. I mean the words this, that, these, those, and all in other languages which correspond more or less nearly to these words. If we attend to their signification, we shall perceive that they are synonymous with these expressions, this person, or this thing, etc., and that, consequently, they comprise the import of a demonstrative article and a noun. They are, therefore, in English, genuine nouns, which designate beings by a very general idea, limited only by the import of the demonstrative article which they contain. I shall not enlarge further upon these words, because I have already discussed them above. Alright. Thanks for listening, everybody. The people in the chat room. Cracker, Dale, Dan, Grump, Hopper, Lone Frog, Jane, JJ, Jules, Otto, Popula, Tomato, and Vince. Welcome, everybody. This is UCY.tv, and I think Ron is up next. If you haven't heard him, stay tuned.
The very word secrecy is
see you guys next week.
Free and open society.
Thanks for listening.
People, inherently and historically.
Bye-bye.
The secret societies, the secret oaths, and the secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
to create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific cast system.